Real ID chances may affect your spring and summer travel plans. The Real ID deadline is May 7th, 2025. After this date, travelers must present a Real ID compliant form of identification to board domestic flights in the U.S. Without Real ID, you may be turned away at security or subjected to extensive identity verification. Here with more info is travel agent Kim Oderkirk with Association Services, Stellar Events, and Travel. Kim, good morning.
Good morning, Jake. How are you?
Really, really good. Happy to have you with us for this very important topic. How are you helping Greater West Bloomfield travelers prepare for the Real ID deadline in May of 2025?
Well, I tell them that they need to get it. Most people think it's only for travel, but also federal buildings will not allow you to enter unless you have that Real ID, which is the star at the upper right corner. And it's all states require it. It's not just the Michigan thing. It's not just West Bloomfield. All states will require it. The District of Columbia and all 5 territories. So make sure you have that Real ID. Also, to go to the Secretary of State, you need to take your passport. If you don't have your passport, you need to get a passport, or you need to go on the site for Secretary of State and see what documents you can use to get that Real ID.
All right, great tidbits to keep in mind. And I'm curious, what kind of questions do you tend to get from local clients who are concerned about ID requirements for summer travel?
Well, some of them are like, well, I don't have it. So, but if you have a passport, you can always use your passport to board any flight to get into federal buildings. So most of them are asking me, why do I need it? What's the deadline? Again, it's May 7th, so it's coming up pretty quick. So those are kinds of the main questions, why do I need it and when do I have to have it by?
All right. Yes, of course, keep big questions to keep in mind. Now, of course, a lot of families are going to be traveling possibly with young kids who might not be aware of what any of this is, and possibly seniors who might have forgotten to refill out these forms a while back. How do you work with families, especially those traveling with kids or seniors, to ensure that everyone is travel ready?
Right. So if you're under 18, you don't need a Real ID. You just need the parent to have one. For seniors, you need to, go to Secretary of State, or you can call them. You can renew passports online now, which is new. So especially if you have one already and you just need to renew it, do it online. It'll be a lot faster and you'll get it quicker. Passports can take anywhere from 4 to 10 weeks, depending on the government. And you want to, the biggest tick I tell my people is make sure your passport is good 6 months after you want to get back into the United States. I've seen people stopped at the airport because their passport doesn't go out far enough for them to get back into the United States.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, these are very important things to keep in mind. That's something I didn't even think about. And for residents who haven't updated to Real ID yet, what's your advice on making the process smooth and stress-free?
Find out where your local Secretary of State office is, make an appointment. I've had mine for a long time, so I haven't been to the Secretary of State lately, but they were taking appointments. And then read to see what documents you need. If you have a passport, I think you're good to go. If you don't, you have to have an original birth certificate. You have to have your Social Security card. You have to have 2 documents that prove you live in Michigan and your address. So a lot more hoops if you don't have that passport. But make sure you get it done.
Of course. For those just joining us right now on the Splash Live, we have travel agent Kim Oderkirk talking to us about the importance of updating your Real ID, because the Real ID deadline is on May 7th of 2025. Now, are you seeing any changes in travel plans locally due to Real ID awareness or confusion?
I have not seen any. Most people, when they renewed their license, it automatically renewed to a Real ID. So most people have it. I've only talked to one person that didn't, and I said, well, you better make your appointment and go get it. Even if you don't travel, like I said, federal buildings are going to require you to show that. So if you're trying to get into a federal courthouse or anything TSA, or, I don't know what other buildings, but, you're going to have to check that location and see if you are required to show a real ID.
Of course. Now, it seems like we're coming up on a very, very big travel season. Maybe people might be taking a late spring break trip or possibly an early Memorial Day weekend. What travel tips do you have for West Bloomfield residents who may be booking trips around that time and who might be a little concerned about the deadline?
Well, again, passport works for everything. So, hopefully you have your passport. If you're going domestic, you don't need to worry about the 6 months, but you can still use your passport to get on any flight. And then, like I said, if you know you're going to travel, make your appointment at Secretary of State, get your real ID, and just make sure you're in compliance.
Of course. And then, Kim, in your role as a travel advisor, how can you help community members avoid some last-minute issues at big TSA checkpoints, especially those who might be unaware of some of the new rules?
Well, TSA, so if you want to get through, get past that long TSA line, make sure you have a known traveler's number. So it's an $85 fee. You go in, they do your fingerprints, and then you can go through the TSA line. I know in the next 5 years, I'm actually going to travel out of the country. I want to go to Australia. So my husband and I, we did global entry. That's 120 each, but that lets me go through a faster line. It lets me do faster customs to come back into the country. Most of it's all about getting back into the United States, not so much as leaving the country. So that's what you want to make sure. Anybody going on a cruise, some people are confused about cruises. Always take your passport on a cruise. I don't care if you're, U.S. city to U.S. city. Any of those ports that require a passport will require that cruise to have a passport.
Of course, always have your passport on you for any form of travel. That's what I think, at least. Kim, thank you so much.
And carry it on you, Jake, too. Don't leave it in your hotel room or anything. Make sure you have that passport on you. If you have a problem in another country, you want to be able to get home.
Of course, absolutely. Kim, thank you so much for joining us here on The Splash.
Thank you,
One more
Jake.
question before we let you go. Where can people go to gain a little more information about the deadline and what to do?
Okay, so I looked that up, and it is travel.state.gov.
All right, very important website to make sure that you are up to date on all of the information. Kim, thank you so much for joining us on The Splash.
Thanks, Jake.